Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I got to tell you something, people. Years ago, before MTV, in South Jersey, we had a cable station that would play rock videos. And I remember seeing the early Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker videos and seeing the drummer and saying, this guy is just cool. Like, you know, some people, you look at them, they're just cool. And I remember the Here Comes My Girl video, and he had the great hair, good-looking guy, shirt like sort of open with the tie hanging out. And there's a smash cut, and he's wearing these white boots. And I said, this guy is so cool. And now, I never thought I'd get a chance to talk to him. He's on Cooper Talk, and he has a band, the Speaker Wars. They have an album coming out May 30th. I listened to the first two singles. I really enjoyed him. He's also a songwriter, a producer. He's done a bunch of stuff. And my guest is Stan Lynch. How you doing, Stan?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Where are you?
I'm in South Jersey. I'm 10 minutes from Philadelphia. I'm right over the bridge. So I'm over Jersey. And you're in Florida, right?
I am.
Okay, yeah.
I am in Florida.
So, okay, well, let's get started with the Speaker Wars. You know, you're in this band. You got the hat. You see, it's marketing. How did it come about? Because you weren't in bands for a while. And how did you meet John Christopher Davis, or as you like to call him, JCD? How did you meet him? What? Tell me the whole backdrop of how this band got started.
Well, it was a few years back. We were both we did not know each other. We were both happened to be in Nashville. We were both writing. We were both songwriters with different publishers. And we were put together on a kind of a blind date, which is how publishers do. You know, they go, hey, you should get together with this guy. John. And so we met, and I'm thinking, I don't know, whatever. And we walked in, and we bonded immediately. And we had the same influences. We both grew up loving the same music. And we didn't have any interest in trying to write a commercial song. We just wanted to write to turn each other on, which was kind of a unique moment in Nashville, because Nashville can be very staged. And John won me over immediately by just going, hey, man, I like it. Let's go. So that was how it began. And we wrote the first song that came out called You Make Every Lie Come True. That was one of the first songs we ever wrote together, and on and on. And so he kept bugging me, like saying, you know, you ought to get behind the kit. And I'm like, nah, I'm kind of through with that. And he's like, nah, get behind the kit, play. So John's a big part of the reason why there's a band, you know. And then, so that's the short form or the long form, depending on how much time we got.
So, okay, so you guys decide to form the band. Now, I know it's a big thing, you know, you can form a band, then it's a big thing from getting yourself to actually recording with a band. You know, I mean, it's the things you have to get to know each other. Then you have to get the surrounding characters. It's just not all of a sudden it's just you and him. So what was your process did you set a date and say, okay, we're going to go in the studio here, we're going to have some stuff written, and we got to get the guys? Or how did you assemble the band? Because I know now it's a lot easier because you can post on the internet. I mean, back in the day, I used to be a stand-up comedian, and we had to send a tape, and you'd have to go through all this bullshit just to get a booking, and back with musicians. But so how did you guys put this ensemble together?
Well, John, once again, I got to give credit where credit's due. He had a working band and working musicians in Dallas, Texas. And I happened to be coming and going in Dallas quite often. And John said, well, come on by and check out my guys. So we sort of curated what I thought would be guys that could be compatible with the way I play. Because as a drummer, I have a pretty narrow lane. You know, I kind of just do one thing. And if you're not accommodating to it, I don't really know what to do. I'm not, like you mentioned, guys like Rich Redmond, and who I met early in life in Nashville. These guys are versatile. I mean, Rich was playing sessions early. I met him on an early date with him and Tully, and they were already really versatile. And I'm not a session guy. I'm a band guy. I never thought of myself as a drummer. I thought of myself as a drummer in a band, that specific band. So the last time I was a drummer in a band was with the Heartbreakers, and the next time I'm in one is with these guys. So it has to feel good. And so John is the part of that, and getting to play with Mike Campbell was a big part of dragging me behind the kit and feeling like, well, is this even a job that I still am comfortable with?
What is that like? Like, because I just started getting back on stage again, and it's a different world, because I think we've matured, and it's not. I do it for fun now, and before it was your job. And for you, when you had such a long layoff, and I mean, you played huge venues. I saw you at the Spectrum in Philly in 1980 and 81. So, what is it like when now you come back? Is it sort of like a rebirth? Do you feel like, is it rejuvenating to your drumming? Do you sit there and feel like, wow, I really miss this, or do you feel like I got to learn this shit again? I gotta,
D, all of the above. It's plus you're a different man and you have a different knowledge set, and sometimes knowing is grieving. It's like, I'm glad I didn't know then what I know now, because I would have never played drums like that. I was abandoned, crazy, out of my mind, having the time of my life, attracting so much attention to myself. Had I known what the drummer's actual job was after, now so many years of producing records and working with amazing drummers, I've been on the other side of the glass watching these brilliant drummers, and now I know the job description more intimately, and it does create a certain effect on your drumming. And also, my body is different. I can't quite throttle up like that without hurting myself. I could actually harm myself if I tried to hit as hard as I did in the old days, and I did harm myself. It's like, it's a contact sport, man, playing drums in a rock and roll band when you're a kid. You don't hold back. I mean, you hit the heavy bag with everything you got for as many years as you can until you eventually learn that, technique.
It is amazing. It is amazing with drummers, because I had saw Blondie a while back, and Clem Burr, he still pounds the shit out of the drums. And I'm like, how does he have this energy? Because he's in his 70s, and I'm like, he's up there just wailing. And I'm like, I'm getting tired looking at him.
No, Clem was better and metronomically better than most of the guys of his class, and he was always great looking and good, came up with the brilliant parts. And so even if Clem has, quote, lost a step, which I doubt he has, but even if he has, he's still a 10 because he was a 12. You know what I mean? So that's the thing you realize with some of these guys, they had an extra chromosome. So even if they, if they lost, or I won't say lost, if they evolved into a different form, they were still a cut above. And that's sort of how I feel about a lot of the guys that I see that are still standing and playing beautifully and singing beautifully. It's because they had, sometimes you're born with just a little extra, and some of those guys were,
So the songwriting now with the Speaker Wars, how do you write it? And I want to ask you before, I just want to ask you, I mentioned Here Comes My Girl, and you do the drum part. Now, you're a songwriter, and back then I know Tom was writing a lot of songs. But did you put that in there? Like, when you're writing for Speaker Wars too, do you write, like, scales out for the drummer because it's you, or do you know where you're going to go? Like, Here Comes My Girl. Did Tom just let you open that up, or is stuff like that written out? Because I always think drummers seem like they're instinctual. They pounce. They know they can hear a bit of a song, and in 1 second they can go, oh, boom, boom. I mean, how does that happen with you as a songwriter and your drumming?
Well, specifically on Here Comes My Girl?
Yeah, did you write that part, or did he say, take it away, Stan?
Well, it was interesting. Mike Campbell wrote the music to that track, and that was his piece of music, and he wanted, in his mind, he was directing me toward Joey Kramer in Aerosmith, Walk This Way. Boom, bam, boom, boom, bam. So he was directing me that way. When I heard, which was great. I mean, Joey Kramer's a badass. I mean, and I was thinking, cool, that's a great starting point. And then when I heard Tom singing on that music, it was very relaxed and laconic, and he was, he's just sort of like, sometimes, Tom's, he's cool. And I remember thinking, well, Joey Kramer on this record might be a little too much of a hand grenade in the baby carriage. It was like, didn't feel, and no disrespect. I mean, man, no disrespect. I mean, so I remember my North Star was always Tom when I was considering a drum part. What feels like we're both in the same cab smoking a joint together, and we both get out of the car together, and we both look like we're kind of like got our arms around each other. So that's how that drum part massaged itself into sort of the relaxed loping. The kick drum is sort of like follows the. My drum parts weren't parts; they were taking advantage of the spaces that Tom would provide, and so with the Speaker Wars, we're still evolving that. Remember, that was 3 albums in, and so now I'm still with this new material. The song comes first, the vocal is the most important thing, and so if I have a guide vocal on a demo, I can start to let the drum part take shape around it. To me, that's if the drums have a beat and the vocal accommodates that, and then it's like, yeah, man, there's a chance that that's going to be cool, So anyway, I hope that explains it.
Yeah. So now when you guys write with you and it's John, is someone in charge of lyrics? Is someone in charge? Because in the one video, you're both writing lyrics down, and I love handwriting. You're sitting there in the video for your that song. You're writing the shit out, and I love that because that's like old school. That's like yellow legal pad kind of stuff.
That's how we do it.
So, but now, do you decide? How do you get the song? Like with It Ain't Easy. Did you write the lyrics, or did he, or do you guys do it collaboratively? I mean, how does that whole work when you're writing with someone? Because I've written comedy with people before, and I used to have a comedy troupe, and I would be mostly the head writer, but then the guys would pitch me ideas, and I would do this and do that. But then you have to really be sharing because we're very stubborn. For me, when you have an idea, you're like, no, I can't change this. This is right. So how do you guys get to the common ground? And does someone write the music? Does someone write the lyrics? Or what's your whole process?
Well, if you're collaborating, and that's a different process than writing on your own, I've been very fortunate to have been schooled by some of the best and watch their process. So what I've learned from collaborating is keep an open mind, do never resent a guy with a good idea, embrace it. And with John, we both landed somewhere in that space where you fill in the blank. And if John walks in with a pair of aces, if I've only got a pair of twos, metaphorically, I'm going to play his hand. So in that song, I think he had It Ain't Easy. I think he had the title because it ain't. I think he was just speaking, literally. And I think I wrote into his hand. I think I wrote like, let me help you get that across. I didn't think he maybe was going hard enough. I was like, let's really get into this, man. Like, let's don't pussyfoot around. So, I think what I do as a collaborator is provide what isn't there. Sometimes I start with that. Like, if somebody has music and they don't have words, man, watch me. And I've done that a lot with a lot of different guys I really admire. They come to me sometimes and go, hey, can you put something in here? And they even have the scan, like even down to how many words they want to hear and a melody. And it's like, whoa, that's going to be a tough one. But I've learned to write music sometimes. And if a guy has a great lyric, with a guy like Don Henley, sometimes he doesn't need a lot of help lyrically.
Right.
He's awfully good at this. And so you stand back and you don't and if he asks you do you have anything to help to contribute to this, you pony it up with the full knowledge that 9 times out of 10 he's just going to go nah, but it doesn't stop you. You can't be a pussy and go, oh, well, he doesn't like it, so he hates everything that I'm doing. You just go, man, just keep it coming. And being with guys like that in the room, and being with guys like Steve Lukather, and and all my collaborations have been, you gotta man up. You know what I mean? You can't just have living room balls. You know what I mean? You gotta come in with church bell balls and go, ta-da! And if they go like, nope, you go like, okay, how about this? And but I've been very fortunate to audit some people that I find probably some of the best around, and also watching Tom over those years create tapestry and create story, and it rubs off on you, a little bit. I mean, whatever you can. I mean, being in a room with Dylan, and being in a room with these guys that are just so good, you just go, oh, and not everything they do is amazing. So that's a good learning experience too. You go, oh, occasionally they shank one too, They throw a gutter ball every once in a while. That gives you hope. Right, you're mortal.
So now, when did you start writing songs? I want to get about how you got into music, but at what age did you start writing songs? Was it
man, early in my little 3-piece band we had. I'm still in high school, and we were writing, but we were, I don't know if we were serious. We were just providing our own fun content. I was really lucky that early in life I got together with guys that were smart, and they were sort of literate. They were smarter than me, and they were funny as shit. And like I got one of the earliest band I was in that was making any statement was with Marty Gerard, who later went on to form the Motels, and he was so bright, and we made each other laugh. So that's how we started writing songs. We go, we ought to write a song about that. So we were always writing. Most of it sucked, but it kept us highly entertained. So,
Well, when did you feel you started getting your groove in writing? Like, when did you start? And I know to be a good artist, to write, do comedy, do whatever, even as a host, you always learn. That's something. Once you stop learning, you're screwed. People have to learn that. You're just. So, but when did you start feeling that you were getting in that groove? I mean, when did you feel that way?
Well, I got probably when you get a cut. Like that's what they refer to, when somebody records one of your songs, it gives you hope. I don't know if you think you're in the groove, but you go, oh, I wasn't laughed out of the room. Somebody cut my song. So, I got a couple cuts early, and that gave me hope, and then probably the real validation occurred with Danny Korchmar and Don Henley. They were the guys that validated me. They said, you can do this. We want you to do this. We're not going to just tolerate you. It's going to have to be the level that we want it to be. And they were gatekeepers, and they were big brothers, and they allowed me to audit their process. So that was probably the first time I heard, when I got a song on that Danny and Don co-wrote with, that I got to co-write with them. That was probably like the first time I went home going, damn, this is, even if it never happened again, I was probably, that's how much planning I put into this. By the time I got a gold record with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, if it had ended that day, I would have gone, well, hell, I never expected to do that, So all of this has been, since I was a little boy, has just been tripping forward most of the time. Occasionally you trip and smash your head, but most of the time you go, oh, I don't know, it seems to be working. Let's keep doing this.
Now, what kind of little boy were you? What got you into music? I mean, I always think my brother played drums, so I've had a lot of drummers on the show. I remember the only thing that pissed me off was our basement used to flood, so they took down the ping pong table and put his Ludwig kit up there, and I could no longer play ping pong. But but when did you decide? I mean, what were you like as a kid? Were you a precocious kid? Did you know you loved music at an early age? I mean, what started this whole thing of being a musician?
I loved music as a little boy. I remember like my grandmother had two grand pianos at her house in Ohio. And I remember climbing under them and just as a little toddler, like hearing the sound of these soundboards over my head. And it was like, oh my God, what a noise. And I just go to the piano and just hit a key and hold it down and just go, holy crap. Just the sound of music freaked me out. And then by the time rock and roll hit by Ed Sullivan, which was our MTV, like Sunday night, seeing the Rolling Stones and the Beatles on, and the Kinks, and I just knew that I'm going to throw my life away. This is where I'm going. I don't care if I end up living under a bridge. I'm going to, even as a little kid, like 12, 13 years old, I want to be part of this, whatever it is. And the radio was AM, and it played everything from James Brown to 16 tons to everything in between. So it was like there was music ripped me up. I would actually be transported. Sitting on the dock of the bay, I remember like hearing that during a rainstorm, and it was like the rain on the record and then the rain in real time, and I was just like, this is magic. This is magic. And I was on that dock of the bay, and I was hearing that, and I was watching the tides, and I lived on the water. So every song felt like they were written to me personally. They really were. I mean, every song had this, I don't know, I wanted to be part of that circus, whatever that was. And I knew that it wasn't for everybody, because there were jocks in school that felt that way about football. I didn't give a shit about football. I wanted to be in a band. And I was, as a kid, I was probably really shy. So learning to play in a band was like a superpower. Once I could play drums, it was like, well, you can't beat me up because I'm playing the high school dance tonight. You don't want to beat me up. Girls are talking to me. You probably want to hang out, So it created an introduction that I think I needed it. I didn't know how to introduce myself to people. And we were always moving. When we were kids, I moved every year. My parents were going back to school and teaching school. We were very, very Sephardic, and nomadic as a kid. So it was an introduction. Like, hey, man, nice to meet you. You play music? You're like, yeah, okay, cool.
It's funny that you said you moved a lot, because I've talked to actors about that too, who have ended up acting, because whenever you move, and luckily I went to the same school my whole life, but then when I went to college, it was a big thing. You didn't know anyone. But when you're moving around, it's like you're always auditioning, or you're always getting on stage, because it's
Absolutely.
always a new thing. And I think that's why like you said, you're moving around, so you don't know anyone and you're a shy kid, but you had the drums. And I think people look at that as, or like actors would learn how to, it's like an audition. You're auditioning. So I think that really plays a big part on some people who end up becoming artists, because they're always somewhat recreating themselves because they're in a whole new situation.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such an obvious. If I wore a T-shirt that said Ludwig on it, it was like, and I'm in junior high, it's like somebody, I couldn't wait for somebody to ask me, A, are you a drummer? Like, well, why, yes, I am. Or, what the hell is Ludwig? Are you a Ludwig Beethoven fan? No, Ludwig's drums, man. It's like, I got something to talk about. Or, it was like, everything, or, it was my life, and it always has been. And it's created my friendships that endure to this day. I have friends that go all the way back to when I was a little boy. They're still my friends, and we still play together, and we still talk about music. And it's always been friendship first, music followed. So, as sad as it may sound, this has been my social life as well as my livelihood. And it's provided really well for me on both levels. It's made me friends for life, and it's given me shelter and food, and it's been amazing that I've been able to do this. So I ain't stopping.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't stop. So now, what was your course from being this kid in high school bands to ending up in being, and basically like people my age, I'm 60. It's, the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers music was a big part, was a soundtrack. When Damn the Torpedoes came out in like 78, and I was just going into high school, and then and then girls we dated. I remember The Waiting. I was having a problem with this one girl, and she didn't know what she wanted, and she wrote like, "It's like The Waiting," and I was like, oh man. So now I hear that song, I always go, I think of this girl. But for you, how do you go from being a guy who loves music and playing, in a high school band and wearing a Ludwig shirt, to end up in being in one of the, legendary American rock bands? What was your path?
Incredibly lucky. What was my path? Oh, hell. My path was like an Easter egg hunt. I don't know, a treasure hunt. It was like my path was broken field running. It was absolutely trip and fall and meet people that the right people, and being school. I was a little younger than most of the people I played with, so they would take me in almost as I was almost feral. When I went to California, I was beyond broke. I was living in my Volkswagen, living in a basement, and I would meet people that would say, "Hey man, my girlfriend can cut your hair, and you want to play with these guys?" And I met people, and then eventually ended up with the guys that I grew up with in Gainesville. Oddly enough, we ended up, it was the most circuitous route to get where I got. It's like lightning kept striking, and I kept falling forward into it. And it still feels like that to me.
So when did you join? I mean, when did you guys come up with the Tom Petty band? What were who Tom was first? I mean, of course Tom, but how did you guys end up all together? Because there's always different, like, it's always like, I always say it's like networking. Someone knows someone who knows someone knows something, and they go, hey, this guy. How did you end up with that band?
My memory, which is mine, is that Ben Montench, Mike Campbell, and Tom Petty were all in a band called Mudcrutch. I was in a band with Marty Gerard, and Ron Blair, the bass player, was in another band, and I think we all ended up in California for very different reasons. We all went there, and Ben Montench and I became friends again in California, and we both wanted to start a band. So the Heartbreakers actually came together as a result of him calling Mike, me calling Ron, and getting together to make Ben Montench demos. So it was once again very organic. Tom showed up. He still had the remnants of a record deal, and said, "Man, you guys are good. Let's get together and start. Let's do this." And I remember saying, like, "Yeah, if you want to be in a band, let's be in a band." And that's my memory of how it all came together. Was once again extremely organically. Like, it all had to be these same knuckleheads that grew up drinking the same water, listening to the same radio from the same small town, that had the same influences, and were desperate and needed to make it. And man, thank God we all ran into each other, and we counted four, and it sounded just like that.
Now, what was it like for you finally going into the studio with a record deal? I mean, it must be something, as you said, you kept falling forward, but that must be, I always think it must be a little nerve-wracking. because, as you said, if everything had ended when you got the gold record, you would be fine. But when you go back when you're young, we're always invincible. And I think when we screw up somehow, you feel bad, like if something doesn't sell or something like that. So for you going in, you were younger than them, as you said, they sort of mentored you somewhat. What was it like going into the studio? Like, was it just all like, holy crap, I'm part of the biz. I mean, we can all, whenever you play an instrument, you're part of the music scene, but now you're part of the biz. What went through your mind? I mean, if you remember.
Not a lot went through my mind because I was very comfortable and hyper confident, like overly confident, because that was the way you played your hand back then. You would like, I ain't scared of nothing, and when we went in the studio, it was so ghetto. I can't describe, like, Shelter Records was, it was beyond ghetto, man. It was funky. And those early record recordings were just, I didn't even know we were making a record. I just thought we were playing and somebody was recording it. I mean, American Girl, the drums are on one fader, which for those of you that don't know what that means, that's about as unsophisticated a way to record. I mean, I didn't know what we were doing and nobody knew what we were doing. So we were just catching fire. We were catching lightning in a bottle, and the songs were coming quickly. The recording, we didn't have any budget. We didn't have a clue. All we knew was that every day we had somewhere to be. That's what I remember. Like, hey, can you be here tomorrow at 4? Well, hell yeah. Can you be here tomorrow? Like, yeah, man. And it would be these confluence of events that people would be in the studio that I admired, walking through because it was Shelter. It was extraordinary. I didn't have any sense of pressure. I had a more sense of awe and wonder. Like, man, is this going to work? And then you go back. First time you got to hear yourself. Shit, I went. There wasn't really a control room. There was a room that had speakers, and you went in there and they pushed. You heard the playback of things. And you went, oh wow, cool, far out. Oh man, amazing. And we were inventing a sound right there in real time.
Now, do you remember the first time you heard yourself on the radio?
Yeah. We were all in a car together. We were in a rental car in Gainesville driving around, and WGGG, I think in Gainesville, was going to play the new Tom Petty record or whatever, and of course they decided to play it against another band that had players from Gainesville, the Eagles. So they played our record with the Eagles' greatest hits, and then our song. Like, so it'd be like Witchy Woman, and then American Girl or whatever, and it was like, and we got our asses kicked, because their shit sounded famous, but we were still so fucking excited to be in a car, all of us piled in a renter car, going, driving around in a circle, going, holy shit, but yeah, I remember it. I remember being on the road, and occasionally there'd be something would happen. We'd be in a car, and somebody would pull up in the car next to us, like we'd be in, limos going somewhere, and Tom would roll down the window and he goes, channel blah, 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 96.5 or whatever. And, and you put it on, you go, but it blew my mind that we were on the radio. It still kind of blows my mind.
Well, now for you as the drummer, because, drummers draw attention. Like, as we talked about Rich Remden, when we go see Rich, we always see him when he's in town, and he's got the flames going up. But you guys never, you didn't start drumming in the big venues. Like, for you, all of a sudden Tom Petty and Heartbreakers are one of the biggest bands in the world. So as a showman, how do you go from, playing in like a bar and then to a bigger stage to a huge stage? I mean, do you have to learn something, or you just do the same thing, because, you play the same way, or is it something when you have this bigger stage, you feel like you have to project more because more people are looking at you? How do you develop this playing drums with such a big venue?
it never felt like I was ever conscious of the evolution. The evolution was very, very natural. You know, we went from a club to a theater, from a theater to a amphitheater, from an amphitheater to an arena, to a pop festival. You know, it's like, you know, you were excited. It was just exciting. I never really considered it as showbiz. I just considered we were a band. And as long as those five guys were on stage with me, I had no feeling about ever this can, you know, maybe be a little nervous or excited, but as soon as you heard, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, and I looked around and I went, well, these guys? Shit.
Now, when did you feel like you made it? Like, I mean, was there a certain time? Because you guys, I mean, you seem very humble, and you still love this. But there's got to be a point where you sit there and go, holy shit. You know, like when you said you heard yourself on the radio, so that was a big thing. But was it when you guys were just blowing up the charts, or when did you feel like you're like, oh my God, like this is for real? I am a rock star.
Well, I guess people process fame and money at their own rate. Everybody in the band processed fame and wealth differently. And Tom processed everything very quickly. He processed his fame, his clout, the dollars, all of that work made sense to him somehow. You know, I mean, for me, I'm still processing all of it. I'm still processing the fact that these songs have been here for that long. You know, that I can walk into a grocery store and hear Breakdown. I don't, you know, what the hell is, it doesn't even make any sense to me. And money, shit, I don't even know. Like, I still can't believe that I don't have to have a job, you know, that I don't have to work. So it's, I've always had very managed expectation. So to me, all of this has been beyond my wildest imagination. I could have, if the 15-year-old boy met me today and I told that 15-year-old what's fixing to happen, he'd just crap his pants and die. You know, he would have never got off the floor. So I'm still processing, and I'm making it. What is it? I made it. I don't know. I still want to make it. I still would like to make it.
Now, what happened with you and the Heartbreakers? Because you guys were a huge band. Because I know you wanted to songwrite more. I think is that what happened where you said I mean, it sounds weird to say this, but did you feel like artistically you outgrew them? Is that what happened?
Well, I felt underutilized, and then I also my need for knowledge, my continuing education wasn't happening in that group. I was going soft in the head, like it was and the style of music did not require the kind of drumming I did, and it wasn't that interesting to me to be just needing to be a metronomic timekeeping device. I kind of, I won't say lost interest. I was being asked to do other things in other rooms that were I was much more curious about. And also personality wise, I think I lost them and they lost me. I became way too ambient, and I moved to Florida. That was another thing. I finally just had a belly full of California and said, "Oh, the hell with it, I'm going home." So I think a lot of things happen to make you want to change careers. And I think I was really lucky that I got to do that first 20 because I was the right guy for that time. If I had had to do the last 20, oh my God, I would have probably ended up in therapy and I would have killed somebody. They would have killed me. And it would have been a nightmare. So all's well that ends well. Man, I think it was a really cool, I think timing is everything, man. Especially if you're a drummer.
Now, yeah, exactly. Now, did you feel a disconnect at all when you go from a band? I mean, you're used to a certain life, getting up on stage. Now you're starting over, but your identity probably sometimes, people think, oh, Tom Petty and Heartbreakers. What was it like those first few years? You were going to different rooms, but did you feel a little disconnect? And because that was so long part of your life, it was at that point a big majority of your life. What was it like transitioning to, as you said, a new career?
Well, it was my life. My last name was Stan, drummer for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I didn't have a last name, and probably how I introduced myself to people. I don't know. That was everything. But when that ended, I knew that minute that my last name changed. I knew it because I couldn't say that anymore. I couldn't say because I'm not the drummer for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They got another guy. I'm no longer that guy. My name's Stan Lynch, and I write and I produce, and fortunately I was taken in immediately. I mean, almost that night by Henley, who just called me and said, "Get your ass out here and let's get working." So, it was a fairly seamless transition for me, and I've never sought out work. I've never put my resume out there and said, drummer seeks job, or because I always figured, and I lived my life where if it ended today, that'd be fine. I lived, it'd be fine financially, it'd be fine emotionally. I was never hanging 10, needing the next wave. It was always like, well, that was great. Let's see what happens next. So the next chapter of my life was written basically by Don and saying, get to work.
Now, did you go from writing to producing? What was that? Because you've produced a lot of people, or was that all at the same time? Because I always wonder, because producing to me, well, I know you play a bunch of instruments. You're much more than, just playing the drums. You play different instruments. I think producing, you really need to have that encompassing knowledge of different instruments. But what was your progression? Was it writer, songwriting, then producing, or was it all like the same time?
Well, when you at the time, this is the end of 80s, early 90s, everybody was just starting to own a recording studio, some version of it, even if it was just a 4-track. Everybody started recording music at home. That's how they were writing. It wasn't, music was changing. And, so I had a studio at home. They became more elaborate, and you were making demos and pitching your ideas to people. And if they heard something in that demo they thought was inherently cool, you were producing, essentially, because somebody would say, hey, can you come in, can we duplicate that, or is your recording good enough where we can just use it? So it just so happened that songwriting and producing were shaking hands pretty good in the early 90s. So if you did one, you almost did the other.
So now with the Speaker Wars, you shot some videos. You have the 2 videos out. They're a lot different than, how the video transit. You get lucky. Some of your videos, don't come around here no more. I got lucky. There were just epic videos with Tom Petty. What's it like? Because these videos, the one is straight up playing band, and one's it must be weird for you because it's changed so much. It's not probably some of your videos back in the day with the Heartbreakers were probably like $150,000 budgets. Now you can just shoot the stuff on the phone. So what is that like for you? Did you like shooting those big videos back then, or were they sort of like boring to you? Because some people they don't understand. You have to stay on set the whole time. It's not like you walk in and you're there for 1 hour and you're done.
It was all part of that. Look, the past is all like one big blur of just fun work. There were a couple moments shooting those videos where you go, well, I'm either going to die or it's going to work or whatever. They put you on a motorcycle that's blowing up and tell you to pin it and go as fast as you can. You're like, I hope the wheels don't fall off. And it's like, but it's all been broken field running. I keep coming back to, and today, you shoot a video for nothing, and you just basically it's just hopefully, like talking to you, I hope your listeners and will embrace this music and will hear it, will imprint on it, so we get to do some more. So to me, all of this, the grand plan is, can I just keep doing what I've been doing since I was a little boy? So that the videos are like, I don't know, it's another video. Somebody get a camera and take some pictures. Let's go. Like
Now,
I don't really give a thought to it.
now, how would you describe the Speakers Wars music? If someone said, "Give me a pitch line," what is it? What is it? Americana? Is it country? Is it folk? Is it folk rock? What would you say if someone's going to sit there and buy your album? Because I've listened to the first. I could only get the first two songs, and they have a flair of, to me, a little bit of Americana. And that's just, and they're a good sound. You hear a little bit of Eagles influence, you hear a little Tom Petty influence, you hear some country influence. For you, what would you say if someone said, Stan, describe the tracks on the album? What genres are we hitting?
Well, I think it's all over the map, and I'm proud of that. It's all over the map. There's some gospel. There's some almost like heavy British rock that's coming in there. There's a song next coming up called "The Forgiveness Tree," that's just a really loving poem. It's just music, man. I can't bag it. Like, I want somebody else to bag it. Like, I remember when the first Heartbreakers record came out, it was like, it's punk, it's new wave. It's like, I don't know. I remember Tom going like, you put the label on it, I didn't. It's like, we're just in a rock and roll band. We're just making music, man. So, I'm not being flip and I'm not being glib with you, but I'm just saying, shit, I don't know. It's like, it's music. And I hope it's like Buddy Rich said, there's only two kinds, good and bad. I hope it's the good kind.
Okay, so because it's an album, who decides what tracks went where? Because if you have all these different sounds, it's got to be like, I come from a generation, we bought albums, we looked at albums, oh my God, if the lyrics were inside, we're like, holy shit, we can actually find out what they're saying. For you, did you guys sit down and talk about how the track setting goes? Because it's so important, especially now, because it goes straight through. It's not like you're flipping it. Like back in the day, you get the album and you flip it over. But, how did you guys decide the track listing, especially when there's so many different genres?
Well, we have a lot of songs. John and I have written a lot of material. And we have tons of it still to flesh out and tons of it finished. We had the good fortune of meeting a guy named Mike Basterzi, who we enlisted as an exec. We said, Mike, would you do an assembly? And we just happen to trust him and like him, and he likes us. So we said, listen to a bunch of songs. You make an assembly. Because I, literally being in a band, I had to learn to go to committee. And Mike did the assembly of these records and picked 10. And I wasn't always sure, but like, are you sure you're picking that? And he was like, yeah, this one's great. And I'm like, okay. So that's how it happened, is Mike curated these titles and then mastered them so they all sounded like they came in the same cab. Musically, he did a beautiful job, because I had lost objectivity and basically was just, hey, I'm just writing, and so I think it'll be interesting. I'm sorry you didn't get the whole album. I think you'd like it, because it is all over the map. You don't know what's coming next,
Now, you seem, as you said, you seem like you've always tripped up and you're a humble guy. What did it mean a lot to you when you guys made the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Was that something that a musician looks at and it's an honor, or is it something that you go, what was it like for you? Because then you got back and played with the band.
I had very mixed feelings, because it had been about 8 years since I talked to any of them. Really, I hadn't talked to the guys, and I was somewhat excommunicated. I was gone, and I had another whole life. And it was Mike that called me, and he said, hey, we just got inducted into the Hall of Fame they'd like the original band to come play. And my first thought was, maybe not. I literally was like, eh. And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, if I'm going to see these guys ever again, this is probably the best opportunity. And it was awkward, honestly. It was an awkward experience. I mean, of course I was proud, like, yeah, me, really? Going to the show? That's cool. But it was an awkward experience because we'd all moved along, and it was like I'm putting on my old uniform, and it was a little stressful, but I think we pulled it off. It was okay. I mean, I left there kind of going, okay, probably a good thing I'm not in that band anymore, because it wasn't, for me, a lot of it is joy related. If there's no joy in the room, and there's no love in the room, and there's no brotherhood in the room, what the fuck am I doing in the room? It's like, so that's the truth of the experience. But in retrospect, it's a high compliment to be, I was one of the younger people that had been inducted. I got inducted on the first try, on the first album. So it was cool, and it was, I'm glad I went.
You're in the Hall of Fame, and you've worked with so many people. Is there anyone that just you were blown away that you got to meet or work with? I mean, it's something that, being a music fan, music, you love music since you were a young kid, and you happened to become a very successful musician. But was there anyone you got to meet or you got to jam with that you just sit there and went, holy shit, I'm jamming with this person?
Every time it's a mixed bag of, I'm blown away. What am I doing in the room? One of these things is not like the other. That's what you feel like. And you're the odd man out. It's mixed with that, and drop it quick. Drop it quick. We're all musicians. I'm here in the room to try to turn you on and for you to turn me on. Let's get to the music part. So I'm old enough now where I don't lose it. I don't lose it. I just want to be part of something fun.
But was there anyone that you went, oh my God, I'm getting to play, like Dylan, of course, but I mean, was there anyone that you're like, holy shit, like that you just were like, wow. I mean, I'm sure you deliver because you're a pro, as you said, but was there anyone you're like, holy crap, I can't believe I met this person, or they know my work?
Oh yeah, that happens all the time, all the time. I mean, it's unfortunately, as I've gotten older, a lot of my heroes are gone. I speak to them in heavenly whispers, and I try to impress most of the people that I want to impress are gone. So, but yeah, every time, I mean, shoot, I've shook hands with a lot of my heroes, and the fact that they knew who I am is just like, ruh-roh, you know me, you know my work, really? Far out, But yeah, it all happens like that. That's what it's always like. You should never lose that. You should never lose that.
Okay, I have one final question for you. Looking back at your career, and as you said, you're growing. Looking through your whole career, what are just a few things that you're really proud about? Because a lot of times people don't want to say what they're proud about, and it always because sometimes they makes them sound like they're arrogant. People think that, but I think people have to have a self-pride in moments that they're proud. So what are just a few things that you're very proud about?
I'm proud that the people I've been able to have a livelihood with are my friends. I'm really proud of that I love them. And I'm proud of the fact that Don Henley is my pal, and it's like, even if I never made music with him, that we could basically metaphorically take a canoe trip together and we can talk. I'm proud that Mike Campbell's my brother, that Ben Montench is my brother, Ron Blair is my brother. I'm proud of these people in the speaker wars that they look forward to seeing me. And I know that it sounds corny, but I can't separate musical accomplishment from my being a man in this world, you know. And I'm really proud that my family, you know, that they're in my life, that I haven't seemed to offended too many people, you know. And I know I tried early. I know I really did shit the bed, you know. I know it, but I'm proud that I've been able to make amends, and I'm really happy that Tom Petty Nation, you know, that I get to do a radio show and talk to those people that were part of my life that I never got to say goodbye to. You know, I never got my farewell tour, you know. So I feel like I'm proud of the fact that I get closure, you know. That's a big deal for me. Beginning, middle, and end. I love all that, you know. I love ceremony. I don't like leaving things crappy. And I don't seem to be doing that, which that's what I'm most proud of.
Well, that's awesome. This has been awesome, Stan. Now, the album comes out May 30th, and now it's self-titled, right? It's called The Speaker Wars. Okay.
That's it.
It's perfect. That's perfect. And you're very proud. You're proud of the new album, the proud of the new band. And do you guys have any tour plans and possibly touring, or is that something? Yeah. Okay.
Well, from your mouth to God's ear, tell a friend. You know, I mean, we need to cut through the chatter. We need to be heard. We need to be enjoyed. We need to be exploited. Let's get out there and work. You know, it's like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. It takes a whole village to put this thing together. So I consider you part of the team.
All right.
You know?
Well, thank you. I'm part of the team. So people, please check them out. You can go on Amazon Music right now or Apple Music and hear the first two singles. Go to their website and you can find the videos. And, you know, and they're writing on the tablet like I told you. And one, they're doing a set that looks like a live set. And people will also go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 1,035 episodes there. You can email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. If you go to YouTube, look up the Coop Tank. That's my weekly business roundtable. I moderate 3 Philadelphia, New Jersey local business people. We talk about inspiration, motivation, the bullshit you go through in the business world. And also look up Coop's Comedy Corner. I interview a lot of my buddies, Emmy-winning TV writers, you know, some comedian legends who I've known for years. So check that all out. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.